Hello, strangers. I'm Andy,
I'm Mark. Eating, sorry.
and this is Strange Stuff Podcast. And good morning to you.
But didn't you send me a link with some intro the other day?
Yeah, I sent you the link for the intro I've made for our episode, but you're never going to see it unless you watch the episode.
Yeah,
I'm
but
not
I
gonna-
do.
Yeah,
Now
but
it's on video. I've got to check I look okay.
You don't look great.
Can you see that I've got a light literally
did you watch
shining
the
in my
intro,
face?
by the way?
Yeah. It was
And?
the old intro. I didn't see any difference.
Yeah.
I don't know whether Richard likes the idea. I think he's got to earn his place. I'm not suggesting we change the logo, but the logo actually says, doesn't it says Strange Stuff Podcast, and then it's got Andy and Mark on the top?
Oh no, Richard's got his own logo as well.
Oh, what?
Have you not seen that? I'm going to send it to you. It's funny as hell. If you'd have checked out our episode on the Patreon, you would have seen it. Probably. Or did I not have it done then?
All right. I think since he's got his own logo now, I think he should start upping his ante every week.
He doesn't have an ante yet.
No, that's exactly my point.
Now, how did I send it to him?
Oh, I've got a button here I never saw before. There's something called echo cancellation.
No,
Shall I?
no, don't do that unless you're not using headphones. That's just in case you're picking up sound from your speakers through your mic.
From my JBL computer speakers that I don't think are even connected. You realise people can see you being so focused on trying to send a simple message on your phone.
It's not simple because I'm sending it. Oh, you're not even on WhatsApp, are you?
Yes, I am.
Are you? Yeah.
It's like when people on the video see me spelling out words with my mouth. Isn't that an absolute no-no? Mark, Carl. They might think I'm a lunatic.
Okay, I've sent you the intro via WhatsApp.
On what?
WhatsApp.
All right. Didn't know that I was a friend of yours on. Oh, Andy video. Here we go.
You'll like that, I think.
Does it say Strange Stuff Podcast?
Well, watch it.
Andy, Mark, and Richard.
Watch it, and then you'll find out.
Oh, look, I've been crossed out. Bloody cheeky bastard. Yeah, I know when I'm not loved. I actually have my name crossed out, for God's sake.
Do you like it, though?
Yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
Do you like the murdery bits?
The murdery bits, yeah. Yeah.
It took me hours to put that together.
Yeah, I bet it
Unbelievable.
Why don't you start using AI to do our marketing pictures on the other social media platforms?
Oh, I don't know. Although, having said that, I have used AI a couple of times. For example, when we did the episode about people eating mummies, the pictures
I don't remember ever doing an episode of people eating mummies.
It was like a couple of weeks ago.
Eating mummies?
In the Victorian times, it was a pastime, and it was actually medicinally recommended to eat portions of old Egyptian mummies.
You must have done a separate episode with Richard.
Honestly, it was like a month ago. And it was you.
Oh, maybe.
Anyway, they were AI pictures.
Obviously, I've got such limited capacity in terms of memory these days that I obviously filter out
I despair because
the tier 4 memories, and they just get deleted instantly.
I'm not sure they even go in.
No, you're right. Oh, dear. Yes, I'm focusing on the tier 1 memories, which are literally the names of family and friends. You're lucky I still know you're Andy.
Yeah, it's only because my name's on the screen.
Yes, exactly. when I start calling you, what's the name of your chair? Racer or something. When I start calling you DXR Racer, then you know I'm completely
Hello, Mr.
shocked.
Racer.
Oh dear. Anyway, I'll tell you what. I know it's completely boring, even for ourselves, not just the listeners, to talk about weather. But for God's sake, when is the winter going to end in this place?
Oh, have you got a blizzard as well?
I haven't got a blizzard today, but we did have earlier in the week, woke up to another 10 centimetres of snow, wet, heavy snow.
It's ridiculous here. I've never, ever known a winter like it.
No, nor me. It just keeps coming back. It's still white outside. I mean, the roads are clear. Still white on the grass.
I was looking out the window this morning thinking, if it's like this tomorrow, I am not going in. I'm just not going to bother.
Really?
I can't be asked to keep digging my fucking car out.
You know, they had a storm in the UK yesterday. Most of the flights were cancelled and trains and things. They had a really big storm.
Yeah, but they do that when there's a light breeze these days. It's all part of this fucking scare people to death plan. Oh, there's a big wind. You better not go out. Stay inside. Don't go out. Everyone's going to die. They're such fucking wankers. It's just a breeze. Go out and fly a kite. We used to. Not hide under the sofa. Never seen anything like it.
Did you not have much sleep last night or something, Andy? Did you have a bad gaming session? We're only 3 minutes in and you're already ranting about
it is a load of nonsense. I mean, to quote you, it is a load of nonsense. Oh, quick, cancel all the planes because there's some wind in the sky.
Do you remember the Great Storm of 87?
I do. I remember it very well. I had a tree come through the window.
Did you? Where you live? In your house?
I wasn't in my house. I was in someone else's house.
Because I remember that. And amazingly, I managed to get to work by about midday. But there was a tremendous amount of damage. The number of trees that were down on the roads, on the railways, everywhere. It was pretty terrible.
Yeah. 7 Oaks became 1 Oak.
That was 87?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
And who was the name of the meteorologist? Was it Fisher?
Michael Fish.
Fish.
Yeah.
And a lady called in saying there was going to be a big storm tonight. I don't think you need to worry.
I can categorically tell you, as a professional meteorologist.
Did he actually? He didn't. He wasn't that strong in his denial, but
no, but he might as well have because it finished him.
It was his certainly 15 minutes in fame, because to this day I remember his name, and I even remember seeing the weather forecast because it was replayed 1,000 times, and that was even before social media came in.
See, these days he would have made millions out of that. Now, in 1987, he made bugger all.
Well, nobody made any money in 1987.
Someone did.
Actually, you're right. City folk started making money in the mid to late 80s. Prior to that, it was a normal job. Literally. It was well paid, but it was normal salaries. It was only after the mid 80s. And then when did Big Bang happen? Something happened. Big Bang, Maggie Thatcher. And then salaries in the city just went bananas.
Well, it all became bonus related, didn't it?
Exactly. Squeeze as much blood out of the stone as you could. Anyway, that's ancient history. I wonder how many people who listen to our podcast were alive in 1987.
I would imagine a few of them. I don't think we've got a very young listener base. I can't see.
No,
I mean, apart from the girls who tune in just to watch me, of course.
I know. We need to say the word biatch. Is it biatch? That's
biatch.
Exactly. That's what we need to say all the time, and then they'll be listening in their droves.
Bitch.
I don't understand it. They were talking about it on the radio the other day, how young boys these days, that their specifically the attitude towards girls is so basically disrespectful.
I mean, it makes me look like a perfect gent.
No, it literally does, actually. I mean, I certainly hope and pray that you don't actually think in the way that you express yourself. But these days, young boys, There's certainly a risk of it, that's for sure, because, what was the worst thing that we were exposed to when we were young? We used to sneak a copy of Mayfair magazine or something from the newsagents, and that was about as bad as it got.
Well, the worst thing I was exposed to was pervy Uncle Paul's peenie.
Oh, God, I certainly hope not. But, these days, I mean, it's absolutely true. And, I have pretty straightforward, when I watch, what would it be? Something like Instagram or something like that. I mean, literally, I follow car workshop people and motor racing and things like that. And just occasionally you get horrible videos of nasty accidents and things like that. And it's just, why do people want to see things like that? It's of absolutely zero entertainment value. I cringe. I have to turn it off.
They promote it even in the scummy newspapers now. Front pages are always moment so-and-so actually dies in a horror car crash. And they've got a video. Well, fuck you. I don't want to watch it.
No, I don't want to watch it. Anyway, the point I was making was, coming back to the kids, if it's like that on, social media platforms where they're showing, in my mind, sort of horror
snuff movies.
Yes, exactly. Violent sex and all of this sort of thing. No wonder the kids are all screwed up.
I mean, it's true, because they're brought up with like what they see on Pornhub and on the net, and they think that is how people make love.
Yes, I know. That's literally what they think relationships are.
Choking a poor girl half to death.
No, it's just insane. Anyway, they were talking about, I don't know what brought it to a head on the radio the other day, but they were having a long old conversation about it and saying,
I mean, there is a place for choking if it's consensual.
You have to have a safe word. Exactly. We shouldn't joke about. I mean, but that's something. I mean, I'm so boring, but the thought of someone choking me while I'm having,
I did have one.
Well, you should be used to it because you worked in the industry, for God's sake.
Well, there was one girl I was seeing at one point, and in the end, I had to say to her, "Can we just have a cuddle?"
And coming from you, that really says something.
Do we have to go through this every time?
Well,
I mean, anyway, it gets to be hard work.
I don't think it, I say you can do whatever you like when you're adult. It's just the fact that the kids seem to think that is that's standard.
Yeah, that is basically how they think the whole thing runs, because they know no different. Yeah. They've never had, they've never even done fingering. That was that was a life goal for us when we were teenagers.
What was that? Was that third base?
I don't know. I don't. That's the American. No, because that's all Americanisms. I have no idea what first, second, and third base.
No. They used to use those terms. Yes, it was always
American.
In the UK.
No, we never ever did.
Anyway,
never.
What is slightly worrying is, and I'm sure
I thought you were going to say, what is fingering?
No. Well, when we were growing up, I'm sure it was the same for you. We always used, I say always, most of us always used to have, boyfriends and girlfriends, or girlfriends in our case. We always had a girlfriend. There was always a girl, on your arm, etc., etc. These days, it's quite often the case that people, for instance, go through university and they don't have a boyfriend or a girlfriend. They just see people occasionally, but they don't have proper, what I call, relationships.
No, they have fuck buddies.
Well, it's just what happened to having. What's wrong with having boyfriends and girlfriends these days?
It's a lot less hassle with a fuck buddy.
No, but it's
not. I understand your point. It's nice to be in
some sort of relationship, even if it's only a few weeks. Yeah,
but they don't do it anymore because it's not the normal thing that they see in life.
No, well, isn't that a bit of a shame?
Yes, and it won't be long. It won't be long before we're back to the times of Alexander the Great, and then everybody will just be fuck buddies with everybody else, regardless of sex, gender, race, colour,
Alexander
creed, whatever.
the Great, where did he come into the story? He wasn't even a Greek.
No, but you saw that documentary on Netflix where he was kissing his general. after a
He was just
battle or something.
mildly gay.
I mean,
if you can be mildly gay. Anyway, I don't know what got us onto that subject, but yeah. Anyway, whatever the weather.
It just turned into, and it's because of these woke, lefty, liberal bastards like you. But it's okay to be like this.
You complete idiot.
Well done. Well done, you.
I'm not woke because
you've broken the planet.
I've told you so many times before, woke is just not a thing. It's a construction of the right-wing media.
But it's done a lot of damage.
It hasn't done any damage whatsoever. It's the right-wing media that's doing the damage. If you're talking about informed, I remember when
well, I'm hardly talking about informed.
Of course it was ridiculous when what was that stately home when they wanted to put some information up about the fact that the fellow who built the house made all his money on the slave trade, and all the right-wing media got up about woke people closing the stately home. It had nothing to do with closing anything. It was just giving people the information of where the fellow made his money, which I think is perfectly reasonable.
Well, I mean, everyone made their money in the slave trade and the drug trade.
But
that's where the money was made.
No, but not everybody. They didn't.
Everyone who was invested in the East India Company made their money from drugs and slaves.
Yes, but in those days, Andy, it was a very few percentage of the population that had spare cash to invest in the East India Trading Company.
Exactly the same as today.
No, but, well, to some extent, but shareholding.
No, to every extent.
Yeah, but so what you're arguing against yourself? Are you saying that that's okay then?
No, I'm just pointing out that all of that wealth came from the same place. Everybody's wealth.
Right. So why can't people be informed of that?
But they already know.
They don't. They obviously don't. Otherwise, the Daily Mail wouldn't have got up its arse about it.
The Daily Mail get up people's arse about anything and everything simply to distract from what's really going on, as we all know.
Exactly. I completely agree. That's why I'm saying it. This woke thing is just a construct. I'm no more woke than you are.
I'm certainly not woke. I'm fast asleep.
Well, no, only because you live in a cloud of, what do you call that thing? Dark web. You can't possibly be woke if you're...
I don't live in the dark web.
You do. I'm sure you do. Exactly.
First rule of dark web. Nobody talks about dark web.
Exactly. Well, I don't know anything about it. I wouldn't even know. Do they have Google search in the dark web?
No, they do not.
I'll tell you, I'd start using the dark web if you went onto websites on it that didn't constantly tell you about cookies.
Well, they would. They don't have that because there is no advertising. Well, there is, but it's not the advertising you see.
It's so annoying. Every single time you go onto a website, no matter how many times you've been on it before, do you accept cookies? No, reject all, or see the conditions. What? Well, surely it must know the computer.
I bought a new keyboard this morning because a new keyboard for my...
Aren't the shops closed on a Sunday morning?
Online.
Oh, right.
And I had to jump through some hoops to give my money away, I tell you.
That is extremely annoying. And I think that was something to do with data protection nonsense? That was a
scam as well, because your data is so not protected.
I was going to say, I can't imagine. I mean, everybody must know that everything you do online is open to scrutiny or...
We were talking in the Fika room a couple of weeks ago.
Fika room?
Yeah, the restroom at work.
Tea break, not restroom, because for Americans that's the toilet.
We were talking in the bog.
we were having a gathering in the restroom.
We were gathered around the bog. And we were talking about my snow shovel, which I inadvertently left leaning against the fence a few weeks ago, and it's still there, frozen solid to the ground.
You got to put it under the porch.
And then the next day, one of the guys, Eric, showed me his phone, his Facebook feed, and it was covered in adverts for snow shovels.
But look, I mean, this is something we should do on our podcast. We really need to get to the bottom of this. I mean, so many people talk about it. I've experienced it so many times.
Yeah, but there's nothing to get to the bottom of. The point is your phone is listening to you. That is the fact. your phone is listening to you, and they use algorithms to take words that are said more than 2 or 3 times, and they link it to a product and they advertise it to you.
But in that case, why do people always ask the question? I'm sure my phone is listening to me.
Because
if everybody knows it is listening to you,
they don't really want to believe it.
Well,
because I mean, who in their right mind would carry around a device that records every word they say?
Well,
and
obviously,
sells it to anyone who wants to buy it.
I have, what's it called? Google something. I've got that little speaker in my kitchen that I listen to the radio on. Now, clearly,
it's the same with Alexa.
Yeah, but that has to be, by definition, listening to you the whole time, because it's waiting for you to say hello or whatever you have to say. So, of course, it's listening to you. But what would be interesting is, what do they actually do with all of the words that aren't hello? I mean, do they, as you say, analyze it and snow shovel comes up 20 times?
Yes. I mean, even it's sort of off topic, but it's the same sort of thing. You know, if people think if they send in pictures of themselves to each other in DMs, that's a
What's a DM?
A direct message.
Direct message, got it.
Like it's from me to you and you to me. People think that's a safe way to send pictures because only you and I get to see them.
Yes.
What they don't know is that every company has low-paid workers who go through every DM that's ever sent anywhere in the world. Yes, Mark, it's true.
No.
It's absolutely true. There's no such thing as a secure DM.
Look, you've just sent me a message on WhatsApp, and at the top of WhatsApp, it tells you encrypted end-to-end messaging.
Yes, except if you're WhatsApp. You think they can't see what that is?
Really?
Of course. It's not protected at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm surprised that there's always this question mark in that case about, do the phones listen to everything you say and respond by sending you?
Well, there has to be
switch off the mic unless you're using the phone.
No, there has to be that question mark for legal reasons, I would imagine, because if they admitted that they were spying on you 24/7, they would be breaking the law.
I'm going to find it. Do you think is there a microphone thing? I'm looking it up now.
No, there is not.
Would that come under general?
They wouldn't allow that because that defeats the whole object of you paying to hold their spying device for them.
It's quite interesting you say that, because there isn't. Battery, Siri, wallpaper, home, display and brightness, control center.
Would you like your spy device to be louder, less obtrusive?
Now, you are absolutely right. There is nothing relating to microphone on your control center for a watch, for my phone.
Your watch is doing the same thing, by the way.
Well, yes, I've got one of those as well. And that is annoying because you're supposed to activate it by saying what you do, HS. And
you don't have to say H anymore, by the way. You can just say the S.
Oh, really? Yeah. But sometimes it just bursts into life mid-conversation when I'm talking to someone.
Yeah, I've heard
it happens
actually.
Quite all. Yeah, you might have on my phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's come out on the podcast a couple of times.
It suddenly springs into life. Anyway. All right. So we've covered a lot of completely unrelated and irrelevant information.
Let's get into what we're here for. We've spoken a lot about tech and future stuff, but now we should talk a little bit about ancient and past stuff.
Now you're not going to cover my favorite subject that I've suggested 28 times.
I don't know.
The fact all of these ancient carvings include pictures of astronauts.
No, but there is a little bit of that in there.
It was about bloody time. I've been waiting long enough.
What do you think of when we think of ancient civilizations? What pops into your head?
Incas.
Yeah.
I think that weren't they one of the first anyway? South America.
Maya.
Same part of the world. Australia, not same part of the world.
But probably the most ancient is Sumer.
Japanese.
No, actually, it's former Iraq.
All right.
Situated in Mesopotamia.
I'm looking at Iraq, next to Syria and Iran. They've done something recently, Iraq.
Yeah, they've threatened the West.
Not the West. I think they've...
Mainly America.
No, I think it's Israel they've threatened.
Yeah, it's something to do with Israel, but I don't know.
Anyway, carry on. It used to be called Mesopotamia, and by an amazing coincidence, we mentioned, what's his name, the Great? Alexander the Great, and wasn't he Mesopotamian?
No.
Oh,
Macedonian.
Oh, is that different?
Yes.
Oh, dear.
It's in a completely different part of the world.
No, it's not.
It's Greece more than anywhere.
It's not far away, I'll have you know. Actually, it's mainly... Oh, you're right, in fact. It was Greece, because he drifted across to Turkey, didn't he?
Yes.
All right, I stand corrected, only mildly. It's the same part of the world, for God's sake.
I'm surprised you admitted that on video. I'm going to make a clip of that. And I'm going to splice it into every episode. Oh, you're right.
Oh, dear. Carry on.
Oh, well,
we
anyway.
We're talking about Alexander the Great. We're talking about Sumers.
Sumer was a collection of city-states. And the Sumerians had advanced militaries, maths, and writing. Many of their writings tell modern people about Sumerian culture. They existed from 4,100 BC to around about 1750 BC. And the name Sumer meant land of the civilized kings.
Hang on a second. We've got to come back here a second, because didn't we correct something that we'd said on one of the podcasts about Phil's assertion that civilization started 13,000 years ago?
I mean, that we figured that pottery started, but I can't even remember now, and I don't want to keep dragging up things that I might not have been right
And I
about.
thought it was me with a bad memory. You've got a convenient memory. When you have contradicting information on the podcast, I can't remember.
I do not recall, Your Honour.
No, exactly. So anyway, this is 4,000 years. Oh, I've got something, a very quick question that I was thinking of the other day. Sorry. BC, okay, stands for before Christ.
Before Brian.
BC, before Christ.
Yes.
AD stands for...
Anno Domini.
Exactly. Why is the Anno Domini in Latin and the BC in English?
Because until Jesus came and invented the Latin...
No, I think...
There was no Latin.
No, isn't that... I mean... Unless BC happens to be the same, before Christ happens to be BC in Latin.
We say BC is before Christ, but we don't necessarily know that. It could
sorry, I was thinking about it literally the other day.
Bumptious Christos.
What is Latin? Oh, shall I ask Siri?
Christos.
Hang on. I'm going to ask Siri something. Am I allowed to do this on the podcast? We're not going to get sued by Apple.
Come at me, you fuckers.
Hey, Siri. What is the Latin word for before?
I can't translate into Latin yet.
Oh, she's an idiot.
Thanks for nothing.
She's an idiot. I bet Alexa could do it.
Have you got her?
I have quite locally. Hang on a second. I'll just go and talk to her.
See if you can get an answer. I'll keep the audience occupied. It's ridiculous how these conversations take complete tangents. Anyway, I thought it would be interesting to know. Even if you don't. I'm trying to Google it at the same time to see if I can beat...
She also doesn't speak Latin yet.
All right. You carry on, sorry. Otherwise we'll never get finished with this podcast. Latin word for before. Before.
Yeah, okay, I'll carry on. The Sumerians were one of the first groups to divide time into hours and minutes. And they also had a very complex religion that involved gods called the Anunnakil. And that's really what we're going to talk about today.
Right, I just missed that because I've just found the answer. It's ante. A-N-T-E, so nothing to do with B. So why
of
do we
course it
use
is.
BC in English and AD Anno Domini in Latin? There's a Trivial
Excuse
Pursuit.
me.
I know who I'm going to call on that. I could get on the radio.
Oh, you could go on QI.
No, not QI.
Phil would go nuts.
No. My mate James.
Oh,
My mate James.
James, fucking wanky wank. I hope he listens.
The chance of him listening. Oh, if I get on the radio, I can promote our podcast.
Yes, you can tell him to watch this episode. James, this is for you.
All right, sorry, I've missed track of things now. I'm still on the Sumer bit.
Okay, right. Well, I said they were one of the first groups to divide time into hours and minutes. And they had a complex religion that involved gods called the Anunnakil. And it's the Anunnakil that we're going to sort of focus on today.
The gods.
Yes.
Like Greek gods, but these are Samars
Very
gods.
similar, but not Greek. So the Anunnakil were believed to be in charge of Sumerians' fates. There's many myths involving members of the Anunnakil passing judgment on humans. And additionally, the gods were described as children of the earth and sky. And most people chalk these stories up to mythology the same way they do the Greek gods. However, a lot of others wonder whether there's more to the story. Some researchers believe that the Anunnaki might have been actual beings, and one popular theory is that they came to Earth from another planet.
I knew it. Well done, Andy. Yeah.
Some believe they came from the mysterious planet X, which they say passed close to Earth thousands of years ago.
Oh, now you're sounding a bit...
No, we've spoken about Planet X before, and it passes every so many thousands of years.
Yeah, but that was in the same episode as Hollow Earth.
Possibly. But why would aliens come to Earth and pose as gods?
Well, they wouldn't pose as gods, would they?
Unless
they're just
they
being
wanted
normal.
to enslave the human race, of course, because believers of this theory say the Anunnaki forced Sumerians to mine gold for them. And then, when they had what they needed, the Anunnaki returned to Planet X. Some even go so far as to say that the Anunnaki were a species of reptilian humanoids.
Oh, no. You just want to introduce David Icke back into the story because he was our most popular episode.
Unbelievably. They believe that
we
these
should send
reptiles,
him a little email, actually.
What, thanking him?
Thank you.
We should invite him on.
Yeah, exactly. God, can you imagine?
Then we'll all have to wear purple.
Yeah, indeed.
They believe that these reptiles helped the Sumerians develop their system of writing and maths, and further, they think the reptiles are still around today and wield real power in the human world. And I can't see anything wrong with that theory.
I can't see reptiles with their sort of clawy hands being able to do detailed masonry work, which is what always enthralls me.
Well, whether the Anunnaki were real or mythical, one thing is for certain. The ancient Sumerian gods still fascinate many people today.
What were their names?
I will tell you.
Are they both male and female?
Yes.
Do they have multiple arms like the Indian ones?
I'm going to show you some pictures.
Shiva.
Photos.
Go for it. No, that's an Indian god. It's the only one that comes to mind.
Well, right. The name Anunnaki is derived from An, which is the Sumerian god of the sky. And the name is variously written Nuna, Anunnakini, or Anunnaki, or Anunnana.
That sounds like a song. Anuna na 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 na.
Meaning princely offspring or offspring of An. And
in what language? What language are we talking now? What do the Anunnaki speak?
I would imagine Sumerian.
Oh, the language of Jesus.
The Anunnaki, oh dear God.
No, but isn't that the film? Isn't that what Mel Gibson did? That ridiculous Life of Christ, or not Life of Christ, whatever it was called.
Life of Brian.
And he do it in Samaria? What is the
I have
language?
no idea. I never saw it.
You saw it 5 times. I know you did. You told me at
Life
the time.
of Brian, yes. Every Easter, without fail.
What? They used to show it at Easter time.
No, I watch
TV.
it at Easter.
Oh, I see.
The Anunnaki were believed to be the offspring of An and his consort, the earth goddess Kai.
That's where the name comes from, Anunnaki.
Yes. Now, Kai is identified with the Sumerian mother goddess Ninhursag. And I'm sure I've pronounced that wrong.
I
but
think
there's
you're
so
killing
many,
the language, but
there are so many names I'm just not even going to attempt. Stating that they were originally the same figure, and the oldest of the Anunnaki was Enlil, the god of air, and chief god of the Sumerian pantheon. And the Sumerians believed that until Enlil was born, heaven and earth were inseparable. And then Enlil split the heaven and earth in two and carried away the earth, while his father, An, carried away the sky.
it's quite interesting that all of these gods are related to sort of elements, parts of the environment. They're not related to war or love or battle,
because I mean that was what you could actually physically see. So
yeah, exactly.
you can understand why people would worship the sun
or the sky
because it's so
or
big
the
and
sea.
magnificent.
Yes.
Well, the Anunnaki are chiefly mentioned in literary texts, and there's very little evidence to support the existence of any cult of them that has yet been unearthed.
I've got a question for you.
I'm not surprised.
Was there an Anunnaki god of the sea?
Yes.
Was there?
Yes, his name was Little Pee-Pee.
Because I've only just seen this. Iraq, in spite of being quite a big country, has a very, very small coastline.
I was going to say, I thought it was landlocked.
No, it's not. No, it does. Is it the Arabian Gulf? Where Saudi Arabia and Iran, the sea between Iran and Saudi Arabia, Iraq has a small coastline against that. Anyway, sorry, back to the story. Sorry.
Yeah. It's likely we've got no evidence of them is because each member of the Anunnaki had his or her own individual cult. So you'd have some that would worship the crocodile god, some that would worship the elephant god, and some that would worship, different gods. But
I don't think there are too many elephants in Iraq, and I'm not too sure there are many crocodiles in Iraq, actually.
Well, there are in Egypt. The Egyptian crocodile is my spirit animal.
Your what?
Because
your what?
It's my spirit animal.
This is a joke.
Because like the Egyptian crocodile, I live in denial.
Oh, was that a Christmas cracker joke or something?
Come on, that's gold.
Oh, dear.
Similarly, no representations of the Anunnaki as a complete group have yet been discovered, although a few depictions of 2 or 3 individual members together have been identified. And deities in ancient Mesopotamia were almost exclusively anthropomorphic. And you know what that means.
Remind me.
Shapeshifters.
Ah, yes. We've done one on shapeshifting.
They were thought to possess extraordinary powers and were often envisioned as being of tremendous physical size. And I think it was the Anunnaki that gave rise to the theory that the pyramids were actually built by giants.
Sorry, that's a theory, is it, in your world?
It's a theory in the real world. Because we can't build the pyramids today, mate.
Why does everybody say that? Of course you can.
No, we can't.
Of course you can.
We can't, because our cranes would tip over.
You just build a ramp, and enough ramps with enough labour, you build a pyramid, and then you remove the ramp when it's all finished. It can be easier.
Do you know that the theory today, and it is a theory, is that, well, how many slaves do you reckon it took to build the pyramids?
Is this a joke or is it
No,
serious?
it's a serious question.
1 million.
None. They
Because
reckon that the labour was provided by farmers in their free time because they worshipped their gods so mightily.
I suppose there were quite a few farmers and maybe they had quite a bit of free time, but it's a colossal...
I would imagine if you're trying to grow potatoes in the desert in Egypt, you've got a lot of spare time.
Yes. I don't think they grew potatoes, but they might have been harvesting olives or something. Oranges. Not so much apples. Citrus fruit, generally speaking, I think grows well in that area. Watermelons.
I'm not particularly swallowing that line.
You prefer
I think there were definitely
giants.
slaves involved with giant slaves.
There might have been giant slaves, but sorry, these giants were shapeshifters.
The giants weren't necessarily the Anunnakil.
Ah, right. It must have been pretty exhausting. Do you think it takes energy as a shapeshifter? If your natural shape is being a bit reptilian, if you...
I think it takes effort to stay in the human form.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean.
It's like taking off a tight pair of shoes at the end of the day. Your feet get to go, oh, thank fuck.
Why do you have tight pairs of shoes?
Because you can't afford new ones. We're not all multi-billionaires like you and Musk.
Do you know how much a pair of
fucker.
shoes costs these days?
No, because I can't afford any. I haven't bought shoes for years. I go through dumpsters to find mine.
Ridiculous. I mean, 150 quid for a pair of normal trainers, basically.
What?
Do you know what type of shoes I wear these days?
For anything like me, you get them from JD Sports.
No, they're called Skechers. They're super comfy, and it's mainly old people that wear them.
Oh, do you want me to edit that out?
Actually, they look like trainers.
They look like trainers, but they've got like sheepskin lining.
No sheepskin lining. Anyway, completely off the subject. We haven't got very far. All I now got is Sumer and Anunnakil. We've got a few names of the gods.
Okay, well, the deities typically wore melam, which was an ambiguous substance which covered them in terrifying splendor. And melam could also be worn by heroes, kings, giants, and even daemons.
Was it silk or something that shimmered?
It's melam. It's indescribable. The effect that seeing a deity's melam has on a human is described as "Neh."
That is some sort of Monty Python joke.
Yeah, the knights that say "Neh." It's exactly the same word, and it's a word for the physical tingling of the flesh. So if you see someone covered in melam, you will say "Neh."
So is it more like an aura rather than an actual material?
I would imagine. Deities were almost always depicted wearing horned caps consisting of up to 7 superimposed pairs of horns.
That must have been exhausting to wear a hat with 7 superimposed pair of horns on them.
A bit dangerous when you had a few sherbets as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
They were also sometimes depicted wearing clothes with elaborate decorative gold and silver ornaments sewn onto them.
Did this dull the aura?
I doubt it.
Response?
I doubt it. I would imagine that the
melanoma shone through.
The melam was on top of the clothing.
Maybe.
But the ancient Mesopotamians believed that their deities lived in heaven. And after an earlier history of visiting Earth in the mythological texts, and they also believed that a god's statue was a physical embodiment of the god himself. And as such, cult statues were given constant care and attention. And a set of priests was assigned to tend to them. These priests would clothe the statues and place feasts before them so they could eat. A deity's temple was believed to be the deity's literal place of residence. And the gods had boats, full-size barges, which were normally stored inside the temples, and were used to transport the cult statues along waterways during various religious festivals. The gods also had chariots.
Of fire.
Chariots of the gods.
Are any of these statues still remaining?
I would imagine so. But these chariots, I'm not entirely certain, but maybe.
How do you spell it? Anu what?
Anunnaki.
A-N-U-N-A.
No, N-N.
N-N.
A-K-I.
A-K-I. Anunnaki. I will look up while we're doing this Anunnaki statues.
No, but then you're not going to listen to me and you're going to go, oh, hang on, I didn't hear that.
Oh, that's a good point, actually. I can't do two things. I can't multitask.
Okay, so the chariots were used for transporting the statues by land, and sometimes the cult statue would be transported to the location of a battle so that the god could watch the battle unfold. The major deities of the Mesopotamian pantheon, which included the Anunnaki, were believed to participate in the assembly of the gods, through which the gods made all their decisions, and the assembly was seen as a divine counterpart to the semi-democratic legislative system that existed during the third dynasty of Ur, which was 2000 BC to 2000.
So these Anunnaki, they were around from 4000 BC to 2000 BC.
Oh, probably longer.
Oh, no, you said until 17 something or others BC.
Yeah.
All right.
And the earliest known usage of the term Anunnaki comes from inscriptions written during the reign of Gudea, which was 2144 BC, and the third dynasty of Ur. In the earliest texts, the term is applied to the most powerful and important gods in the Sumerian pantheon, and the descendants of the sky god An. This group of deities probably included the 7 gods who decree, who were An, Enlil, Enki, Ninhursag, Nana.
What? Why are you looking at me like that?
Didn't you have a Nana? Utu and Inanna. So, although certain deities were described as members of the Anunnaki, there's no complete list of the names of all the Anunnaki that have survived. They're usually only referred to as a cohesive group in literary texts.
Hang on a second. When are we going to get to the alien draw depictions on the side of the buildings? That's what I've been waiting for, obviously. Do you not listen to my requests? I want an explanation of why there are pictures of aliens on the side of these buildings.
Yes, but that's not what we're talking about today.
Well, what are we talking about then?
We're talking about the Anunnaki and the Sumerians.
What, no alien pictures on the side of the buildings?
No, but I can give you an example.
I don't want you to send me any old nonsense. I want pictures.
I'm going to send you pictures.
Did they ever appear in their reptilian form, do you think, in front of the general public?
Well, quite a lot. And I mean, even the Egyptians, their gods had the heads of wolves and dogs.
You're right, they did, and parrots and things like that.
So
maybe that's what is it? What is it when you can change shape? Changes? What's that called again?
Anthropomorphic.
Anthropomorphic. Has anybody ever speculated that all of the Egyptian stuff, they were actually beings that were anthropomorphic? No, your voice has disappeared now. What's happened to you?
Yeah, I know, because
you're too embarrassed to say it wrong. Anthropomorphic.
I think it's It's longer than that.
There's another syllable in there, is there?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that's an explanation of why, there's loads of the bird-headed people.
Anthropomorphic, perhaps.
Anthropomorphic.
Maybe. I don't know.
You've just thrown in a po for no reason at all.
I'm always throwing the po around.
Is that an expression for the police?
Yeah.
Popo. Right.
Well, to your question about writings and things,
yes.
Drawings.
Yes.
A stray Sumerian tablet has been translated and published by the Cambridge University Library.
Yes.
And it focuses on this very small clay tablet written by a scribe in ancient Iraq some 4,200 years ago. And if you want to see a description of the tablet along with high-res images, you can see them on Cambridge Digital Library, but I'll see if I can send you
a picky. So they had language and written script 4,000 years ago.
Well,
it's quite impressive.
It's sort of clay tablets, really. But they definitely had, I mean, they literally invented writing, the Sumerians.
Did they? So, that's an interesting point. This is where it all started, was it?
Yeah.
They kicked off the writing malarkey.
Yeah. And this particular tablet contains 6 lines of cuneiform script. And cuneiform script is basically a wedge-shaped chisel implement that's hammered into the clay to make symbols.
Leave impressions.
Yes. And it's roughly the size of an adult thumb. And it was donated to the university.
What?
Yes,
the tablet is the size of a thumb.
Yes.
Well, that doesn't hold true with the giant bit of the story.
Well, it's not
they wouldn't have
the
tiny little nimble fingers.
Right. The giants couldn't read them right. They were builders. They were builders. They weren't the architects and the learned, wizened old men.
So what we're saying was they had giants as workers, but the actual people who did the tablets, they must have been, what can you say, very, very small people with very nimble fingers.
Yes.
Really, seriously, something exists with text written on it from 4,000 years ago that's the size of a thumb.
Yes.
I'm
going to show you drawings of something shortly, but let me get to the end of this bit. It was donated to the University Library in 1921, but then it was lost for many years because
I'm not surprised if it was the size of a thumb.
Until its rediscovery in 2016 during research for the Curious Objects exhibition held as part of the University Library's 600th anniversary.
Maybe it's fake.
The full translation.
But it can't have been how many words can you fit on the size of your thumb?
I'm going to tell you. Because the full translation...
Let me guess. 23. I'd be impressed if you could fit 23 words on your thumb.
I thought you would... I thought you meant it said 23.
No, 23 words.
I'm not going to count them. But
what is more than 3?
The text runs as follows. 18 jars of pig fat. 4 jars of pig fat. Bali. Fat dispensed at the city of Zabala. Ab-Kid the scribe. 4th year, 10th month.
25. Or is that 30?
Who knows?
Can you imagine the anticlimax of finding something, a tablet that's 4,000 years old and you've got some bloody shopping list on it?
It's basically a receipt.
I mean, can you imagine how disappointing that would be to the people who discovered it?
It would be like someone in 3,000 years turning up a Tesco's
receipt.
One lamb shank.
It could have been anything. It could have been bloody the 10 Commandments from Moses or something. And it turns out to be a pig fat receipt.
But a man named Bali turns up regularly in other texts from the same area during the same period of history.
He was a busy boy.
He was an official in charge of a wide range of oils, from pig fat and butter to sesame oil and almond oil.
What? Butter?
Yeah,
They don't have butter in the Middle East.
they churned butter, clearly, because he was in charge of it. And there is receipts to show that he was.
That's quite bizarre. I didn't think butter existed other than in Northern Europe. Cold climates.
Well, Professor Nicholas Postgate, a senior fellow at the MacDonald Institute for Archaeological Research at Cambridge,
And his colleague Pregate.
and his colleague Ronald MacDonald, who has studied the tablet, said this little piece of clay is packed full of information from 4,200 years ago. The language is Sumerian, the oldest written language, and there are 6 professionally written lines of cuneiform script on it.
On the size of a thumb.
Yes.
Why didn't they use a bigger stone to do the receipt?
I thought you were going to say, why didn't they just use a Parker pen?
No, but why would you go to all of the effort?
Because it has to be transportable. These are obviously receipts or records that need to be stored somewhere. You don't want to have an enormous room for your financial records, do you?
That's a surprisingly reasoned argument or response, Andy. Well done. Yeah, because you didn't want a whole room full of massive, great big rocks as your receipts.
Especially if you were the filing clerk.
Right. Keep you fit, be like doing weights all day long.
Can you get me April's receipts, please? Oh, fuck me, not again.
Right, carry on. I want to see a picture of this. As I say, carry on.
Yeah, don't distract me because I've got like 9 tabs open here. I've got to take them in order, otherwise I'm going to lose myself.
Your computer doesn't have 9 tabs.
Okay. In the early years of the 20th century, the antiquity market in the West was flooded disastrously with thousands of cuneiform tablets which had been ripped out of their original context from sites where illicit robbers were working. God. And these tablets were then distributed across the world from Moscow to London to Chicago.
Oh, so you can buy them on the antiquities market, can you?
Probably seen on the Antiques Roadshow.
Mm.
The content is very simple. It mentions a large quantity of lard or pig's fat and gives the name of the responsible official. And it states that this fat was dispensed in the city of Zabala. And we think that these jars were 80 litres each. So that means we're talking about hundreds of litres of fat.
80 litres, that would be a real challenge to carry, I can tell you.
Which is why we believe in the giants.
It's a very strange size of jar because I can tell you, do you know what a jerry can is?
Yes.
That's 20 litres, and think how much that weighs.
Yes.
And you're talking about something 4 times the size.
Yep.
Well, you couldn't lift it.
And since it was displayed as part of Curious Objects, Professor Postgate has conducted further research on the tablet and plans to publish an academic paper on both the tablet and its text. We may be able to reconstruct what's going on in individual tablets, but we can never reconstruct the physical archaeological context from which they came. So there's a great loss of information there, he said. Since the 20s, many other tablets from the same archive have surfaced all over the world, and our own small tablet makes its own contribution to the reconstruction of a government office more than 4,000 years old.
A government office 4,000 years ago.
Yeah.
So they had government.
A depressing thought.
It sort of supports Phil's theory that not theory, but information that civilizations existed 13,000 years ago. Because if you had a civilization that was sophisticated enough to have government officers, I mean that sort of implies that there's a whole organizational hierarchy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just some feudal king.
Yeah, I mean, it's organized. I don't want to say democracy because...
Well, I don't think they were democracies. When was the first democracy?
No such thing.
Well, you idiot.
What? Listen, no, before you go into one.
The size of your thumb. What thumb have you got that's that size?
This is an ancient Sumerian star map.
Oh.
And this reveals a rather cataclysmic asteroid impact.
All right.
Over 150 years ago, this particular Sumerian star map was found by Henry Layard in a subterranean library in Nineveh.
In Iraq.
Yes. Ever since its discovery, scholars had been puzzled to learn about its meaning until computer software in 2008 finally allowed for the cuneiform clay tablet to be translated, which revealed the oldest documented observation of an asteroid impact to Earth.
4,000 years ago.
Long thought to be an Assyrian tablet, computer analysis has matched it with the sky above Mesopotamia over 5,000 years ago and proved it to be much more ancient, of Sumerian origin. Now it's held at the British Museum.
Of course.
And it's known as the planisphere, and it provides extraordinary proof for the existence of sophisticated Sumerian astronomy. At approximately 5 inches in diameter, the tablet tells how an ancient Sumerian astronomer observed a massive asteroid approaching Earth on June the 29th, 3123 before Brian.
Without a telescope.
Who knows? As it smashed through our planet's atmosphere and made its way to the surface, the ancient astronomer referred to the cosmic body as a white stone bowl approaching from the sky. He not only described the object, but he managed to make a note of the object's trajectory relative to the stars, and he did so with amazing precision. Experts say that the trajectory of the asteroid was recorded with an error of less than 1 degree. And this allowed modern scholars to simulate the trajectory of the space rock and conclude that it most likely impacted in Europe. And this event is known by historians as the Kufels impact event, where a kilometre-long asteroid crashed into the Alps near Kufels, Austria, over 5,600 years ago.
Maybe it wasn't an asteroid. Maybe, in fact, that stone was a flight plan for the aliens landing.
Filed by the drunken spaceship pilot who crash-landed in the Alps.
Exactly.
It's possible. This astrolabe is the earliest known astronomical instrument. It consists of a segmented disc-shaped star chart with marked units of angle inscribed upon the rim. But unfortunately, as you can see from the picture, considerable parts of it, approximately 40% of the surface, the planisphere on this tablet, are missing, which is damage which dates to the sacking of Nineveh. The reverse of the tablet is blank.
It does lead one. You know, when you look at all of this stuff in its entirety, it does lead one to the conclusion that it's definitely something alien-y going on in the past. All of the why would they know so much about the planets? Why would they have a bloody star chart 3,200 years ago?
And
why would they be even interested?
How were they studying the heavens 5,000 years ago?
Exactly. So maybe they were in fact given, as I say, the flight plans of the alien aircraft that these people actually just transcribed onto something that they would understand.
I mean, all joking aside, I am minded to lean towards alien technology on this one. Because along with inventing writing, the plough, law codes and literature, the Sumerians are also remembered as some of history's original brewers.
And mathematicians, didn't you say? Weren't they good at maths?
Archaeologists have found evidence of Mesopotamian beer making dating back to 4000 BC. So in my mind, that's definitely alien technology.
The stuff you drink probably is. Sorry, what do you need to make beer?
Well, the
Do you
techniques
need
they
yeast
used,
and sugar?
you can make beer with barley, yeast, but the brewing techniques they used are still pretty much a mystery. But our preferred ale seems to have been a barley-based concoction, so thick that it had to be sipped through a special kind of filtration straw.
Ah, so they needed to improve on the technology they were using.
But they did have the early version of Saatchi and Saatchi to market it because they prized their beer for its nutrient-rich ingredients, and they hailed it as the key to a joyful heart and a contented liver.
Contented liver?
I mean, well, doctors used to say smoking was good for you.
But hang on a second, they didn't even know about livers 4000 BC. They didn't know what a liver was.
Well, the aliens did, clearly.
Where did you get that advertising crap from?
From a cuneiform.
What's a cuneiform?
A cuneiform. Clay writings.
They said it's...
The Sumerian invention of cuneiform, which is a Latin term which literally means wedge-shaped. And it dates to around about 3400 BC. In its most sophisticated form, it consisted of several hundred characters that ancient scribes used to write words or syllables on wet clay tablets with a reed stylus.
And they mention the word liver.
Yes.
Just talking. It was quite good up until you say something that's completely unbelievable.
No, but that was the advertising, not the advertising, but that was how it was referred to. A joy for the heart and whatever it was for the liver.
No, I'm sorry, Andy. You've lost my faith now.
The tablets were then baked or left in the sun to harden. And they first developed cuneiform for the mundane purposes of keeping accounts and records of business transactions, which we saw with the thumb-sized cuneiform. But over time, it blossomed into the full-fledged writing system used for everything from poetry and history to law codes and literature. And since the script could be adapted to multiple languages, it was later used over the course of several millennia by more than a dozen different cultures. In fact, archaeologists have found evidence that Near East astronomical texts were still being written in cuneiform as recently as the 1st century Anno Domini. So, pretty sophisticated peoples.
Indeed, and look what's happened now. What went wrong? I wonder how women fared in those days. Because the Egyptians, which are just across the water a bit, I think weren't women these senior people in society in those days?
Was it a matriarchy, Egypt?
That's it. Well done, a matriarchy. I think it was a matriarchal society.
But even the early Sumerians, I think there was a woman who ruled for a while. I read somewhere.
Interesting. All right, well, that's quite interesting. I mean, obviously, societies have... When you think that Portugal used to be a bloody global power and now they're not, England used to be, we're not. I mean, Rome used to be a global power and they're not. It's not surprising that what used to be Sumeria and the...
Well, I mean, they basically were the first civilization.
Exactly. No, but that's what I mean. And it's ended up in a place where women can't even drive cars freely.
Well, since the early Sumerian homeland was largely devoid of timber, stone and minerals, they were forced to create one of history's earliest trade networks over both land and sea. And their most important commercial partner may have been the island of Dilmun, which is present-day Bahrain, which held a monopoly on the copper trade. But their merchants also undertook months-long journeys to Anatolia and Lebanon to gather cedar wood, and to Oman and the Indus Valley for gold and gemstones.
Sorry, where is Bahrain as an island? I can't see it.
Without a map, I have no idea.
I've got a map and I can't see it.
The Sumerians were particularly fond of lapis lazuli. So was my mother, in
lazuli, for God's sake. Lapis
lazuli.
Lazuli, not lazuli.
I'll give you that, seeing as your father was, or your grandfather was...
My uncle.
Your uncle was jeweller to Princess Di.
Jeweller to the Queen. Deceased.
Well, lapis lazuli, as you know, is a blue-coloured precious stone used in art and jewellery.
Funnily enough, it's semi-precious. But anyway, carry on.
Okay. And there is evidence that they may have gone as far as Afghanistan to obtain it. Historians have also suggested that Sumerian references to two ancient trading lands known as Magan and Malua may refer to Egypt and Ethiopia. So they got about.
Why do you think it all kicked off in that part of the world? Why is it the Middle East was the start of it all? Because let's say the first civilizations were in fact the Aborigines in Australia. They never developed into a I'm not saying their natural civilization wasn't sophisticated, but not sophisticated in the way that we know it today. Whereas this...
Yeah, but there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because they had no near neighbours to compete with. So there was no form of competition. So they didn't need to evolve.
You're right. Yeah. So maybe that is the answer to the question, because they were so close to others, trade and everything, maybe just natural. The people that had trees, they were exporting wood, and the desert with sand, they were exporting sand for whatever reason. Toilets.
For your litter box.
Exactly.
Especially in Egypt, that would be big business.
Actually, yeah. Where do you think the cats used to do their number twos? Did they have litter box in those days?
They had litter temples.
They did.
One of the crowning achievements of Mesopotamian literature is the Epic of Gilgamesh. It's a 3,000-line poem that follows the adventures of a Sumerian king as he battles a forest monster and quests after the secret of eternal life. Now, while the poem's hero is a demigod, it's all right, I'm keeping you up, I know. While the poem's hero is a demigod with Herculean strength, most scholars believed he's based on an actual king who served as the fifth ruler in the city of Uruk. The historical Gilgamesh appears on the Sumerian king list, and this is where I saw the name of the lady king, or the lady queen. And it's thought to have lived sometime around 2700 BC. Few contemporary accounts of his reign have survived to today, but archaeologists have found inscriptions that credit him with building Uruk's massive defensive walls and restoring a temple to the goddess Ninil. And this suggests that he may have been a real ruler whose deeds were later repurposed as myth. So, as we spoke about time, the origins of the 60-second minute and the 60-minute hour can be traced to Mesopotamia.
So why did they choose that?
In the same way that modern maths is a decimal system based on the number 10, Sumerians mainly used a sexagesimal structure, which was based around groupings of 60. This easily divisible number system was later adopted by the ancient Babylonians, who used it to make astronomical calculations on the lengths of the months and the year. So base 60 eventually fell out of use, but its legacy still lives on in the measurements of both the hour and the minute.
What's it called? Sexagesimal. Sexy guess with a G.
With a G.
Not D, obviously.
No.
Sexagesimal.
It sounds kind of saucy.
I wonder what brought them to 6 or 60. What in nature would come 60? There's no astronomical activity that is 60, is it? Is there?
I mean, it sort of makes sense because other remnants of the sexagesimal system have also survived in the form of spatial measurements, such as the division of a circle into 360 degrees and the use of 12 inches and a foot. also divided or divisible from 60.
Yes, you're right. 360 degrees.
I mean, they were very, very advanced. And we could go on for several episodes about this particular culture, but we do tend to stick to one episode at a time. So
what would happen? Here's a question. So you're talking about, I don't think it's completely crazy to think that their advancement in their step advancement in civilization was as a result of some sort of extraterrestrial intervention. That doesn't surprise me in the slightest. Question I was going to ask was, with the way things are going these days, where do children obviously learn to write?
Barely.
But let's say in 20 or 30 years' time, when actually children only know how to use a keyboard, what is the risk? What is the risk of something happening to the digital world that simply closes it down?
It's a real risk. I mean, all it takes is an EMP.
What's an EMP?
An electromagnetic pulse.
And if it knocked out all of the digital world as we know it, our podcast would be pretty screwed for a start. But everything would be screwed to the extent that people would no longer be able to...
We would be kicked back into the Stone Age.
Yes. Well, not maybe not the Stone Age, but we'd be kicked back into the Dark Ages.
But then, I mean, it'd be okay for you. You could just get on your horse and parade about your manor with
if
your
I had
serfs,
a horse or a manor, I could do that, yes.
Claiming prima nocta on every which way but
no,
loose
but you know what I
wench
mean? You can, you know, the upside of them being knocked forward, for whatever reason, was lost at some stage. They didn't remain as the senior society.
Yeah, but don't forget that
they were overtaken by whoever else. I mean,
don't
everybody
forget
else.
That the Anunnakil initially used the Sumerian people as slaves to mine their gold, and then they left when they had enough and went back to Planet X or whence they came.
Yeah, that story sounds a bit weak, because why would they have left?
Then you're left with a civilization that's been given certain advancements but don't know really what to do with them.
Well, no, but my analogy was the same thing today if the digital world was removed. Exactly the same thing.
I think it would eventually be a very good thing if the digital world imploded.
Well, I don't know if it would be a good thing. It would be certainly a pretty painful transition, that's for sure.
Yeah, but the other side of that coin is an even bleaker future.
I tend to agree, but then we're both 60 years old. I mean, you know, if you speak to my son about it, he'd say that's a ludicrous proposition.
Well, your son is helping AI to take over the world. He should be ashamed of himself. Frankly, Alex.
Luckily.
Talking to you.
Luckily, he's not. But no, but you know what I mean? It's quite interesting. It's always interested me how you have societies that have such an obvious, clear advantage, and they disappear for whatever reason, but all of the advantages that they brought to the population of a whole are just forgotten. They're left untapped, like Roman road making.
Yeah.
They just stopped using Roman road making technology. Well, why? It's not too difficult.
And those roads still exist today.
I know, but
unlike the M25, which is being resurfaced on a fortnightly basis.
Almost quite literally. If you move forward to 500, when did the Roman Empire collapse? 300 or something, or 800 or 1000 AD. They didn't know how to make roads.
It was under the reign of Nero, wasn't it?
Well, anyway, whatever. Yeah, it's quite interesting, actually, Andy, that was literally where it all started.
So, yeah, for once, we've had a serious podcast involving aliens.
Yes. I still want some photos, though. Sumerian pictograms with alien faces. I want that.
Oh, it was very demanding. But anyway, that brings us to the end of this week's
Good.
fascinating episode about
Well
the
done.
Sumerians and the Anunnakil.
Yes, well done, Andy.
And I mean, we could probably do 2 or 3 more episodes about this in the future and still touch on stuff that hasn't even been discussed yet.
Yeah, it's true.
And we may well do so.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening, everyone.
Very good. Yeah.
Or watching, if indeed you watch. And we'll see you again at the same time next week. In the meantime, have yourselves a strange week. And if you come across any giants with clay tablets, see if you can grab a picture or a selfie and send it to us here at Strange Stuff Podcast. Don't forget, you can follow us on strangestuffpodcast.com, follow us on Instagram and the Facebook. And if you want to hear more of some of our murdery bits, you can join us on Patreon, where you can buy us a coffee or buy us a beer at patreon.com/Strange Stuff Podcast. And I think that's everything. So
I think you've covered every base there, Andy. Yeah.
So it's goodbye from me.
Yes, cheerio, everyone. Thank you.